So I'm here inside the Creality K2 Plus here, kind of troubleshooting some issues on the Z-axis. Really just trying to make this printer, get as close to as perfect as possible. And I was down here looking at the lead screw because that last torture toaster I printed, kind of gave me some weird banding on the Z, so I was kind of checking it out. And if you actually lift right here on the corner of the bed, there is play in the lead screw there. You can see it, probably a millimeter, maybe 2 millimeters. That's quite a bit there. It might even be more than that. I'd say anywhere from 2 to 3 millimeters of play. So what I have, I'm going to take this thing apart. I have some anti-backlash nuts that I've got laying around, and I'll probably end up mounting the flat part underneath here, then have the spring on the top side so it's constantly pushing tension down instead of up. So hopefully we've got enough room for those, and that's going to be my next fix for this Creality K2 Plus. Working on the K2 Plus here, I am actually adding some anti-backlash nuts on the Z-axis. If you look here, let me get your focus locked in, you can see there's quite a bit of play, enough to really mess with your prints. So there's probably, I don't know, a millimeter or two, maybe more of play in the original nuts that are on here, the lead screw nuts. This is the original nut that came off there. They're not anti-backlash, it's just they're using the weight of the bed to help with keeping it, on the threads in a certain spot. So I'm just adding anti-backlash nuts. I'm going through just a whole range of testing to see if those work. And this is an anti-backlash nut here. Basically just keeps tension on the bed or on the lead screw and forces the bed in a certain position. It'll always force it down. And so if it gets hung up, if the lead screws get dirty or something, it'll always force it down, which is what you want. You don't want the bed to be able to travel independent of the lead screw. And this was version 2 of the adapter. Currently working on printing version 3. I had an issue. It's kind of limited space between the edge of the bed and the side blower fan, so I had to revise these adapters. You can see here, this is version 1, 2, and 3. You can kind of see the difference here. I had to change the profile a little bit. Version 1 was going to use the existing screws that came out of the original nut. They're just some socket head screws, the flange style, not the caps. It's actually these right here, these little M3x8s. So I was going to use those, but I've since decided to use some M3x16 socket head cap screws. And that's what version 2 was. But on version 2, this edge here protruded out too far and was interfering with the bed. Then the other side over here, well, it's reversible, but this side over here was actually hitting the fan. So on version 3, I trimmed off the side that's going up against the bed and sucked in this radius here to make it a little bit easier to install. And I've got those printing out on the K1, and those will be done in probably 30 minutes. Then hopefully this version 3 will be the ones that actually work. And basically how you do this is pretty simple. Lower the bed down, well, raise the bed up with your with the machine, just kind of home everything. Then stick a new roll of paper towels in the center of the bed. You go in here to your axis and temp. Then here's a little trick for you. If it shows fans here, just press the fan button again. You'll get your axis, move it back. and you just turn off your motors. Your bed will fall. Push your gantry to the back of the machine. Then it's pretty easy to pull these covers off. First, you will need to pull these brackets off. You just loosen these 2 screws up here, and it comes off pretty easily. Then these covers you just lift up, and they pop off. And you slide these up and out of the way. Probably throw those in the trash because you won't need them. Then down here is the travel nut, or whatever you want to call it. Take those 4 M3x8 screws out, and make sure you've got the paper towel roll underneath there because the bed will fall. Just make sure that's there to keep the bed from falling down. And the other thing I've got to do some testing on is, if you look close, the lead screw is not in the center of the opening for here. It's actually pinched in a little bit. So I'm going to see if that makes a difference, and maybe I make the new backlash nut floating inside the adapter and see if that helps any. I might try that as another test. So installing these backlash nuts, you basically clamp these down until those tabs line up in the slot, and then you'll feed the lead screw into that. So on this slot, you want to make sure there's no gap in between that slot and the tab on here. Then you'll feed this all the way down, and it'll be pointed left to right on the down here on this bracket. So that's how they're going to be installed. They're going to be pointing in the X travel. So everything's going to be a pretty tight fit down here once everything's installed, but it will everything will work out. So it's close, but it will work out. So on these adapters, I was going to have them to where this was a sliding fit in here, to where this thing can move back and forth in the X-axis a little bit to help reduce binding, but we'll see how it goes. All I got to do on revision 3 of this adapter, basically it's only going to be held in with 1 screw just to help keep it centered. I may have to open up this hole a little bit to kind of have that float around in there and create enough room for the spring. So 10 more testing to come. We'll see what happens with this first. I'm going to print another test print and see what happens. Then while I'm waiting on the print to finish here, I'm just going to go ahead and take these out. Easiest thing to do here is just loosen them with an Allen head. They're not that tight anyway. A couple on the other side were just basically finger tight. I've got a little screwdriver I'll stick down in here. Loosen these the rest of the way. Nice and all loose here. Screwdriver. Electric screwdriver here. I guess you could take the bed off to do this, but it's kind of I think it'd be more of a pain in the butt to do that than to just kind of deal with the tight spot here. Bed system's kind of nice here. They floats, so these tabs, these black tabs here, and one on the back, it's the same on this side too. Those screw into this aluminum bracket here, and this bracket, I think it's aluminum, but that bracket there, so if you look here, the bed is actually mounted to this bracket, aluminum, I think it's aluminum bracket, but it's mounted here, and there's actually springs underneath here, and that allows the bed to kind of float left or right. And I need to do more testing to make sure that, you know, it's the bed is basically stationary and vertically, and it's not moving around like this as it goes up and down. So that's just a little bit more testing that I'll have to do. But we'll get this other anti-backlash nut installed, and oh, actually we got to take that one out, and that's just pretty easy. You just unscrew this until it comes out. Trying to do this one-handed here. There we go. Once you get this above the bed, you can unscrew this here. I don't like the way these things are. I think with having a printer of this caliber and price point, there should be a some sort of anti-backlash nut installed on these. I think it's kind of a cheap way to do this stuff here. I'll insert this clip in here. So you're gonna have to trim off part of the lead nut here. It just does not have enough room. So easiest way I just cut it off, made two kind of cuts from each side into the hole, the center of the hole, then just used a file to file down this. Now eventually somebody will end up making an anti-backlash nut that will fit these machines, but until then I'm just gonna continue on. So the first one I just cut and then filed. See how well that worked? I mean, it's not too bad. The second one I just used the file exclusively. Well, you're not focused. So I just used the file on the second one. That worked just as well. It only took about 30 seconds to knock down that edge. So back to installing these. Now that they are modified, and I need to clean the fuzzies off, I will reinstall these nuts. So the reason I had to do that was I thought I could fit the nut under the bed this way, and it's actually part of the main frame of the bed, and as the bed tilts from left to right, that gap changes and was actually pinching the nut. So that's why we had to cut it off to keep it out from underneath the bed. Now we got them installed. Let's see here, zoom in. You can see that flat spot kind of goes up against the edge of the bed. I'll stay in focus, yep. So that's how they got to be. I think if I was going to spend a lot of time designing this, I'm just really doing this for testing, would be that I'd have the flange of the anti-backlash up underneath the bracket with the spring sticking out. I think there's enough room for that. I might look into that in the future, but for right now, just for testing, this is how I'm going to do it. Prints have finished on the K1 for these little adapter pieces. We'll take these off here. You can see on the version 3 here that basically one side's cut off, and when you drop this down on here, it's going to sit right over top of this thing. Ooh, found a problem. Be back. Alright, so I'm kind of doing this as I go. You're running into the same problems I'll have run into. Hopefully you guys watch this video all the way through. But I had to take them back off because the nut or the top bushing that holds the spring on will not fit through the center hole. So here we go. We'll reinstall these again. Alright, so you can see it's installed here. Now we'll take our 4 M3 by 16 socket head cap screws. Oh, that one getting there. We'll get those installed and kind of snug them up. Those are installed. You're definitely going to want an Allen head that's got the ball in the end where you can angle it to tighten it. Alright, now let's move over to the other side. Alright, so it's kind of self-explanatory. I'll make sure I can go over this again. You make sure this thing's installed When you file this down, you don't want it sticking out past the edge of your printed piece. And then when you install this, you want this flat edge to be pointed towards the center of the bed. Both sides are installed here. I printed these out of PETG. They probably could be ABS or ASA. As far as the glass transition temperature, if you think your chamber is going to get more than 80 degrees Celsius, then print them out of something a little bit stronger. But I don't foresee being the chamber temp anything higher than 60, really, for me. So I think PETG will work for now. If something happens, I'll print them out of something stronger that has a little bit higher glass transition temperature. We've got our bushings installed with our adapters, our anti-backlash nuts. We've got our top brackets back on. And let's see what happens when we home this thing. I know one thing. It does not fall down as fast as it used to. I'm not sure if that's going to be a problem or not for when this thing homes, but I guess we'll figure it out. Alright, here we go. Round 2. We'll see. Can we home Z? Yep, alright. It's going to home everything now. So if you home Z first, if you press home Z, it'll home the X and Y first, naturally. So if these don't pop off the top, then I'm just going to leave those caps off. Really don't think there's any reason for these brackets up here other than to prevent whip on those lead screws. So we'll see what happens here. I'm hoping the tops of them pop off. If not, we'll have to redesign this kit. This could be so close. Oh, wow. That is extremely close. So, yeah, I guess only time would tell. The other thing I could do is put a bushing in between here and here. I think what I really need to do is to design this kit to go up and under. Is to put that first part of the bushing under here, and that means we're taking the bed off and taking the lead screw out, which looks like the lead screw is part of the stepper motor. So that means we're taking the bottom off. Looks like the easiest would be just to take the bottom off and yeah, just drop the Z motors. So stay tuned, I guess. Alright, so after a little bit more testing, there's going to be 2 different versions for those who really care. Version 1, I think it's going to be this one up here, to where you don't have to take the printer completely apart, and the anti-backlash nuts mount to the top. Version 2 is going to be where they mount to the bottom. Oops, where'd you go? There we go. So what will have to happen is basically you'll pull the printer out, flip it on its back. You'll have to pull the bottom panel out. You have to pull these 4 screws out. These 4 screws here. These screws mount the motor underneath. You'll probably have to pull the wiring harness. Then you'll have to unscrew everything, take off the nut on the top. And let me find the piece. Alright, so once you pull, you unscrew your Z-axis rod here. You'll take off your stock nut that's mounted to the top of this aluminum bracket here. It's sitting above here like that. It's sitting up here. Then you'll take that off. Then you'll grab the Tech anti-backlash nuts, and you'll put that on top of here. And you'll mount it in here. Then as you feed your lead screw up through there, you'll have to squish that spring in the top mount. This is a 14 millimeter hole, so that 12 millimeter spring will fit through there. which will be no problem. And there's enough room, enough clearance between here and the bottom of the frame when it homes that this adapter will fit, and that basically puts that kind of centers up that adapter, or that anti-backlash nut of this bracket, so you won't have any issues. I don't foresee any. Up top, if you run with version 1, well, so you can see my z-axis is at 0. There is just a little bit of thread grabbing that. For those that are worried about that top of the anti-backlash nut popping off, or if you still want to run these kind of lead screw bracket, whatever the hell those things is for, to stop them from whipping, you can run those too on the version where they mount to the bottom under here. It's kind of a long-winded install here. I mean, you guys, I'm just kind of showing the process of kind of designing and test fitting and all that stuff. So I think in the future, for me, I'm going to go with the version that mounts under here. I've got another K2 Plus sitting in the garage ready to come in and get installed, and I think I'm going to do that. The very first thing I'm going to do on that one is flip it on its back and install the kit that goes underneath here. I think that'll be my first mod on that one, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so that's the install of the anti-backlash nuts. Still don't like the how much movement there is in the bed. We fixed the movement in the z-axis, but if you let me see if I get the phone in hand still, you can see there's still a bunch of movement, and basically it's pivoting on that Z there. So I think when Creality sends out revision 2 of this printer, personally, I would like to see quad gantry leveling on this, to see a motor in each corner. I think that would be more than ideal. This having one in the center, I've never really liked that, because unless you have super rigid linear rails here, you're gonna get that issue where it floats back and forth. And if you say you're printing something that's heavy on one side, and you can, I mean, how minute do you want to get? But you can see there's still movement in the bed, and it's, I'm gonna zoom in here. Yeah, it's just this whole rail's flexing. So I'm working here on the, hold on. Working here on the K1, actually printing some pieces over. Alright, so I'm going to insert this clip in here somewhere. Oh, the lighting's not too good here. Alright, so I'm doing this. Jeez, oh Pete, everything's falling.